Hello everyone, welcome back to Mystic Historian. Look around you at the dazzling glass towers, at the phone glowing in your hand, flashing numbers that represent your life. If you've ever stopped for 1 second and thought, everything feels rich, so why does it all still feel fragile? This film is for you. Before we dive deep into the vault of history, take 1 second, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because tonight we're going to expose the biggest con humanity has ever fallen for. It's not a secret society or a hidden conspiracy. It's the illusion of wealth. The lights of prosperity always shine their brightest right before they burn out. Every empire, every generation, every golden decade ends the exact same way, in panic. But why? Why does the party always turn into a stampede? Why does every boom carry within it the perfect, fatal seed of its own destruction? Why does every age of abundance end in a hunger so ravenous it consumes itself? Tonight, we trace that repeating pattern from ancient Roman gold coins to digital currencies that only exist as code, from the marbled floor of the Forum to the screens of Wall Street. We're going to uncover why the human mind your mind keeps making the same catastrophic mistake, mistaking debt for wealth, paper for power, and a beautifully constructed illusion for rock-solid security. Wealth is a mirage. It's a trick of the light that moves with us. The closer we think we are, the further the horizon line stretches away. It begins quietly. It doesn't arrive with a thunderclap. It's a whisper in the collective mind, a trader on a marble street, a merchant filling their ledger, a politician promising infinite growth, a rising stock chart glowing on 1,000,000 screens. And every single time from the dawn of civilization to the current moment, the feeling is electric. This time, it's real. But it never is. Take ancient Rome. At its peak, the empire minted coins of pure gold and silver. Solid. Trustworthy. The very definition of value. But as wars drained the treasury and the costs of empire became too high, the emperors started doing something subtle, something insidious. They mixed cheaper metals, copper, bronze into those coins. Citizens still saw the same majestic image of Caesar on the surface, but the value beneath was quietly, structurally dying. That small deceit, this fiscal sleight of hand, done to stimulate the economy, was the birth of inflation. The bread still baked, the wine still poured, but the illusion had begun. Centuries later, it would repeat with paper money. And now, it repeats with digital numbers glowing on your phone screen. Different forms. Same lieu. Every era has its golden decade, the jazz age of the roaring 20s, the post-war suburban boom of the 1950s, the tech-fueled rush of the 1990s, and the crypto-fueled fever of the 2020s. In every age, the people believed prosperity had become permanent. They built bigger buildings, bought bigger cars, and crucially borrowed beyond reason. Prosperity is seductive because it tiptoes in. Wages rise a little. Prices climb slowly. The news calls it progress. Banks say, you deserve it. Governments promise, will protect you. And you start believing that money isn't something you earn with blood and sweat. It's something you manifest simply by believing. That's when the illusions become stronger than reality. In 1929, New York City was electric, literally and emotionally. Jazz spilled from speakeasies. Fortunes were made overnight in the ticker tape. Newspapers printed the names of millionaires like they were movie stars. Then came the crash. A single week of falling prices wiped out a decade of dreams. People who thought they were rich discovered they owned nothing but promises written on paper, promises their banks couldn't keep. The illusion shattered. The panic began, and the world went silent. Every illusion of wealth follows the exact same four-act play. It's a script written in the human psyche, and it never changes. Act 1, faith. People believe not in gold, not in systems, but in the future. They believe the charts climbing upward are a destiny, not just a trend. Act 2, expansion. Credit loosens. The money printer runs hot. Risk is not avoided. It's aggressively redefined as opportunity. John says, I can't afford not to invest. Act 3. Euphoria. Everyone becomes an investor. Your taxi driver, your barista, your grandmother. Ordinary people trade like professionals. Prices detach from reality and become a pure expression of hope. Act 4. Reckoning. The first crack appears, a small failure. A whisper of bankruptcy. Confidence collapses. Hope evaporates. And the euphoria is replaced by a tidal wave of panic. This cycle is not about markets, it's about psychology. When people feel rich, they take risks. When they feel poor, they freeze. But it's the feeling, the emotion not, the underlying fallacy that truly drives the world. The illusion of wealth isn't built by economists. It's built by the most potent force in the universe. Human emotion. History's wealthiest societies always collapse the same way. Slowly, then suddenly. Take Spain. After discovering the Americas, it drowned in gold. Ships returned full of literal treasure. What up? Prices soared. Inflation. Luxury replaced labor. Why work when you could just wait for the next ship? Within a century, the empire that controlled the world's gold was structurally bankrupt. France, before the revolution, glittered with palaces, silks, and pearls. But the entire facade was financed by crippling debt and the starvation of its own people. Britain ruled the seas, yet ultimately sold its empire, its physical assets to protect its fading currency. And America, born from a rebellion against taxation, became the most indebted nation on earth. Every empire, every generation makes the same fatal error. They mistake a temporary abundance for a guarantee of immortality. Prosperity, without humility, always ends in ruin. The psychological trap. Why do we never learn this lesson? Because wealth doesn't just buy comfort, it buys identity. When a person's self-worth depends on their net worth, any threat to money feels like a direct threat to their very existence. So we chase growth, not because we need more, but because stopping feels like dying. Economies perfectly mirror this psychology. Central banks fear recessions. The way humans fear silence, so they print. They stimulate. They inflate. Anything to keep the music playing. But when everything is borrowed from tomorrow's money, tomorrow's growth, tomorrow's peaceful illusion thickens until it becomes a claustrophobic fog. Soon, nobody asks what money is anymore. Only how much they can get. Now, in the 21st century, the illusion has achieved its final, perfect form. No gold. No paper. Just digits. Wealth exists in the cloud. In apps. In algorithms. In code that moves at the speed of light. The illusion is total beautifully engineered. A screen that glows with the promise of comfort. Stocks go up because they must. Real estate doubles because it always has. Crypto will rise again because history says so. But illusions don't die in crashes. They die in silence when enough people stop believing. And slowly, quietly, that belief is fading. Wages stagnate while prices soar. Billionaires multiply while small businesses vanish. The gap between value created and value perceived widens into a terrifying chasm. People scroll trade and dream believing wealth is just one click away. But wealth was never digital. It was always human effort, time, and, most importantly, trust. Governments and institutions know this. They know that prosperity is purely perception. They know that markets survive entirely on collective belief. So they manage it like theater. Press conferences, interest rate announcements, carefully chosen words like soft landings, transitory inflation, and contained risk. Words crafted not to inform, but to reassure, because confidence is the last, fragile pillar holding the entire illusion together. Once that cracks, panic spreads faster than any virus, any rumor, any war. You can print trillions of dollars, but you cannot print a single ounce of trust. And when trust disappears, the illusion collapses in a heartbeat. That's when history repeats again. Panic is contagious. It starts with whispers, then runs through the crowd like a lightning strike. Banks close. Prices crash. Politicians promise calm, but deep down, everyone knows the truth. the wealth they thought they had never truly existed in the first place. During the 2008 crisis, millions watched their life savings vanish on screens. It wasn't stolen by a masked bandit. It just evaporated. The illusion shattered, and the world realized the obvious, glaring truth. We built an entire civilization on credit, not creation. And yet, after every collapse, we dust ourselves off and rebuild the exact same system, telling ourselves, this time will be different. Why? Because illusions don't need to be true. They just need to feel true long enough for someone to profit from them. When the illusion of gold began to fade, humanity found something even more powerful, something far more manipulable. Paper, a small slip of ink, and a promise that said, this note represents value. It didn't sparkle like gold or weigh like silver, but it could be printed, and printing meant absolute control. Kings and governments realized they didn't need to risk life and limb to mine gold if they could simply mint faith. And banks discovered a magic no alchemist had ever dreamed of. Money from nothing. The 17th century was the cradle of this magic. In Amsterdam, the Dutch East India Company issued shares pieces of paper representing ownership of voyages across the world. Those papers traded hands in coffee houses. Fortunes rose and fell. With the price of ink, for the first time in history, humans weren't exchanging goods or metals, they were exchanging belief in the future. It was intoxicating. It built empires faster than armies ever could, and like every illusion of wealth, it worked, until too many people stopped believing at the exact same moment. Fast forward to London, 1720, the air buzzed with the promise of easy riches. The South Sea Company claimed it would conquer trade with the New World. Its stock soared from £100 to a breathtaking £1,000. People sold homes. They sold farms. They sold their children's dowries just to buy in. Priests preached prosperity from the pulpit. Parliament itself joined the frenzy. But here is the chilling truth. The trade never came. There were no ships, no profits, and no conquest. Only promises. When the market finally understood the lie, the illusion broke. The stock collapsed overnight, dragging the entire British economy with it. Ordinary citizens were ruined, and Britain learned a timeless lesson it would spend the next 3 centuries trying its hardest to forget. Every paper empire eventually turns to dust. 2 centuries later, the world would watch a new empire rise, one founded not on gold, but on sheer, unadulterated confidence. The United States of America emerged from revolution with nothing but debt and sheer determination. Yet within a century and a half, it became the richest nation on earth. How? By mastering the art of the illusion. The dollar was printed not as wealth, but as the representation of wealth. The Federal Reserve, created in 1913, could expand or contract that illusion at will. For a time, the dollar was still tied to gold, something solid, something real. But in 1971, President Nixon severed that link completely. Overnight, the dollar became pure faith, a promise backed not by a medal in a vault, but by military strength, staggering productivity, and global necessity. And remarkably, it worked. The illusion had become the world believed in the dollar because the world needed to. Trade, oil, technology, all denominated in a symbol that meant nothing, yet meant everything. The late 20th century became a festival of manufactured abundance. Factories roared, suburbs sprawled, and credit cards turned desire into instant reality. A new religion was born. Growth. Every indicator had to rise, endlessly. Profits, GDP, consumption, housing prices. Politicians were judged by it. Corporations lived for it. And consumers fed it with every swipe of a card. But behind the glamour was a towering structure of leverage. Mountains of debt built on smaller hills of savings. Banks bundled those debt subprime mortgages, derivatives, swaps into complex financial weapons, stacked higher and higher. It looked safe, it looked scientific, it looked modern, but it was still the same illusion Rome once minted into coin, the same South Sea promise. A belief that tomorrow would always pay for today. Then came 2008. The world watched in disbelief, as names once synonymous with Power Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns crumbled. It wasn't just a financial collapse. It was a devastating collapse of faith. People realized that the wealth they'd built, their homes, their retirements, their children's college funds were all tied to a confidence game played in skyscrapers of glass and complex jargon. Governments rushed to save the system by doing the very thing that caused the problem, printing more illusion. And it worked again. For a while, markets recovered. The rich got richer. The same algorithms, the same greed, the same cycle of faith and fear resumed. Because humanity's greatest addiction isn't money. It's hope. It's hope. Then came the digital age, a final, most abstract evolution of the illusion. Now, money didn't even need paper. Numbers flashed in pixels. Wealth existed as code lines on a blockchain, digits on a trading app, zeros moving faster than human thought. People bought tokens with no intrinsic value, convinced that technology itself could replace trust. In a way, it did. Blockchain promised truth beyond the banks, transparency beyond the governments. But soon, greed corrupted code the same way it once corrupted gold. New empires rose. Exchanges, meme coins, AI-driven finance. It was exciting, fast, and gloriously free until the moment it wasn't. The crashes came again. Luna FTX. Millions discovered that in the digital realm, illusions dissolve even faster than paper. But we didn't stop. We never do. Because the illusion of wealth is no longer an option, it's the oxygen for the modern world. Look around today. The skyscrapers still glow. Markets still rise. Politicians still promise endless growth. But beneath the numbers, the foundations are hollow. Global debt has surpassed $300 trillion. For every dollar of real, hard productivity, there are $10 of speculation, derivatives, and leverage. We call it innovation, but in many ways, it's just the inflation of meaning itself. We've monetized everything. Time, attention, privacy, even dreams. Our data is currency. Our identity is collateral. And as long as the screens keep lighting up, the illusion survives. But deep down, every thinking person feels that quiet unease, that nagging sense that the math simply doesn't add up anymore. Because it doesn't. Behind every beautiful chart of economic growth lies a hidden story of human exhaustion. Workers chasing promotions that vanish. Families buried in debt just to stay where they are. Young people measuring their self-worth by a net worth they cannot grasp. The illusion of wealth promised freedom but delivered crippling anxiety. It told us more money meant more happiness. Yet the richest societies on earth face record levels of depression and anxiety. What we call prosperity might just be a beautifully packaged form of dependency. We no longer work to live, we live to sustain an economy that demands endless growth, endless consumption, endless distracting noise. And one day, when the system finally demands more than we can give, it will ask for the one thing we can't print: trust. History whispers louder every decade. The graphs change, the empires differ, but the rhythm remains identical. We are once again at the absolute height of the illusion. Central banks conjure trillions from nothing. Stock markets soar while real wages shrink. Houses cost lifetimes of labor, and digital coins pretend to be salvation. It feels unstoppable, just as it always does before the fall. And maybe that's the point. Maybe humanity needs these illusions to function, to dream, to build, to create. But dreams become nightmares the instant we forget they are, in fact, dreams. Somewhere in the noise, a few lonely voices warn. The system is unsustainable. They are ignored, mocked, or buried under trending hash, because acknowledging the illusion means risking total collapse. Governments know this. Corporations know this. So they feed the faith. Stimulus checks, bailouts, AI booms, and endless, dazzling new eras of prosperity. Every generation gets its own version of this time. It's different, but deep down, you can feel it. The tension, the fragility, the quiet sense that the world's wealth is built on nothing but a vast, shimmering sheet of quicksand. The illusion is cracking. Not loudly yet, but the echo is coming. It begins the same way every time, with a subtle vibration. The markets still hum. Politicians still smile. The screens still glow green. And then, one morning, a single, critical number shifts. A major bond fails to sell. A rumor spreads faster than a wildfire. Faith trembles. Investors rush for the exits that no longer exist. Banks close doors that once promised 24/7 access. The world watches numbers fall faster than human language can describe. But beneath the panic is something older, something essential, a reckoning. Long delayed, because illusions can bend reality only so far before reality snaps back and breaks them. And when it breaks, the world remembers what wealth truly is. Food that feeds, homes that shelter, hands that build, and minds that heal. In every crisis, there's a moment when people look at their screens and realize the numbers mean absolutely nothing. In that instant, the illusion of wealth collapses into the hard, undeniable truth of need. The 1930s had bread lines. The 1970s had gas shortages. The 2000s had foreclosures. The 2020s will have something unique and terrifying. An economic breakdown tailored for the digital age. But panic isn't just economic, it's existential. It strips away the comforting stories we tell ourselves about safety, progress, and destiny. You see, prosperity isn't destroyed by scarcity of resources, it's destroyed by scarcity of doubt in the system. And once doubt spreads, no government decree, no algorithm, no military force can contain it. After every panic, historians ask, how did no one see it coming? But people always did, they just didn't want to believe the message. In Rome, the honest merchants warned that coins were losing their purity. In pre-revolutionary France, the peasants whispered that taxes would crush them all. In 1929, a few sober-minded bankers muttered that prices were irrational. In 2008, analysts sent quiet memos titled Unprecedented Risk. No one listened, because illusions don't collapse from ignorance. They collapse from inconvenient truth. The collapse isn't the end. It's the clearing of the fog, the painful, necessary return of clarity. When the last market bell stops ringing, when the last headline screams, something strange happens. Silence. For the first time in years, people pause. They look around. They ask fundamental questions they forgot existed. What is an oak? What does success mean without a dollar sign attached? Who are we when the illusion fades? In that silence, you can almost hear history breathing again, because every collapse clears the ground for something new, not immediately, not gently, but inevitably. After the fall, humanity always rebuilds. Rome fell, but Florence rose. The Great Depression birthed new systems of fairness and regulation. The dot-com crash cleared space for genuine, sustainable innovation. Each panic acts like fire, burning away the superficial greed, leaving behind only the core of necessity. Farmers plant again. Artisans craft again. Neighbors share again. Real value reappears not in stock tickers, but in the soil, in skill, in practical solidarity. And slowly, confidence returns not in abstract currencies, but in people. Because the true wealth of civilization was never in vaults or exchanges. It was in trust, cooperation, and creativity, the invisible human bonds that money only pretended to measure. What if the next age of prosperity isn't built on reckless, vertical growth, but on horizontal grounding, on redefining wealth not as accumulation, but as genuine, accessible stability? Imagine economies measured by public health, instead of sheer output, currencies backed by time, energy, or regenerative ecosystems instead of debt. Technology used to restore planetary balance, not to multiply illusions for the few. The tools already exist. The question is whether we'll finally use them to build truth or just another, more technologically advanced mirage, because the temptation to return to comfort will be strong. After every crash, the siren song of easy money returns. Don't worry, this time we've fixed it. Come back and play. But unless we change what we value at a fundamental, spiritual level, the illusion will rise again stronger, faster, and emptier than ever before. The illusion of wealth doesn't begin in the banks, it begins in. No, it's in every ad that says, "You deserve more." It's in every fear that whispers, "You're not enough." We feed the illusion with comparison, with envy, and with deep-seated insecurity. The market is just a terrifyingly accurate mirror reflecting human desire. If we crave status, it sells us symbols. If we crave safety, it sells us control. If we crave meaning, it sells us distraction. Breaking the illusion means looking in that mirror without flinching. It means asking a revolutionary question: what do I truly need to live? And what have I merely been trained to want? True wealth has no ticker symbol. It's the calm of a healthy, focused mind. The comfort of knowing you have enough food and shelter for your family. The joy of meaningful, contributory work. The unbreakable strength of community. These are things that cannot crash, cannot be inflated, and cannot be printed into existence. They're earned through time, sustained effort, and genuine connection. Maybe the next revolution isn't financial, it's spiritual. A profound shift from possession to purpose, from empty speculation to sustainable creation, from blinding illusion to piercing insight. That's the vision. An age where success is measured not by how much we take, but by how little we waste. Where innovation serves the continuity of life, not just the fluctuations of the market. Where growth means depth, not just height. Every great civilization that fell left us a warning carved into stone, parchment, or data. We thought wealth would save us. It didn't. The Mayans abandoned cities filled with gold and complex mathematics. The British sold their global empire to defend a currency they printed. The Soviets collapsed, chasing economic equality through absolute control. The Americans risked collapse, chasing abstract freedom through infinite credit. Different ideologies, same fatal blindness. The refusal to question what progress really means. But in the ashes, there's always a second message, a defiant message. You can begin again. And maybe that's humanity's true genius, not in flawlessly building illusions, but in consistently surviving them. We need new stories of wealth. Stories that reward creation over consumption, wisdom over noise, and balance over excess. That is the next true evolution of civilization. When the illusion of wealth finally transforms into an understanding of worth. And maybe, one day, history will look back at our precarious age and say, they were the generation that finally saw through the illusion. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine all the numbers disappearing. The bank accounts, the stock prices, the digital balances, the zeros in your ledger. All gone. What remains? The people you love, the knowledge you've earned, the skills you possess, the moments that made you uniquely human, that is, well, everything else was scenery, beautiful, distracting, dangerous, and temporary. And if enough of us remember that, maybe the next time the illusion shatters, we won't rebuild it in the same toxic shape. Maybe we'll finally build something real. If you've stayed till the end of this journey, you already sense ether, quiet, hidden truth beneath all the noise. We are living through history's next turning point. So before you leave this film, take a second. Like the video if it made you think. Subscribe if you want more stories that question the surface and explore the hidden patterns of money, power, and history. Because understanding the illusion is the first step to escaping it. And who knows, maybe, together, we can build an age where prosperity no longer ends in panic, but begins in wisdom.